Welcome back to the chill, relaxed part of the videos. Where I do goofy stuff. Where we talk about more personal things and less wildlife focused. Because it's been a good couple of weeks. I went out last week and I did not record any personal stuff. It was just focused on the wildlife and the still photography that I did. And I remember thinking at the time going, oh, I didn't do that. I don't really feel like it. And that's okay. So I didn't. I don't really have any big updates or anything, which is kind of if there's kind of a structure to this, it's like if I talk about anything that's going on in my personal life, it's pretty much the same. We're applying to places that we can only just barely afford when we stretch the budget to the maximum in Colorado to try to move for my significant other's new job. We got one positive lead, finally. One out of many, because it is a ski resort town. Like, that's what is there, is ski resorts. So most of the places are furnished, which we have furniture and everything, so that doesn't really help. And because they're furnished, they've got stricter rules about pets, and almost no one is okay with cats as a rental at all. There have been 2 out of the 15 or 20 I think we've looked at in the last month and a half. Plenty that allow dogs, which seems kind of messed up to me. Like, I get it. In some ways, cats can be destructive, but so can dogs, and even more so, since this is my personal opinion, children can be way more destructive to your property. But you can't put no children, otherwise that's discriminating. But you can put no dogs or cats, or you can put dogs and no cats, and that's not discriminating. It's kind of messed up no matter which way you look at it, but the entire rental situation's also messed up with how expensive it is. And going to a place where the cost of living is so much higher is just ridiculous. So, we did get one positive lead with somebody who said, yes, I would like to, I would rent to you, because they're nice about it, I guess, in a way that they, rather than just having tourists, I guess, kind of come in for a season, they recognize, oh, someone who will be teaching in the community as an educator, my significant other, that someone who has a tie to the community. Yes, that would be great. It's like, okay, at least we got one positive one, but boy, the place is small. It's, oh boy, is that one 700 square feet? No, I don't remember. Hold on, let me see if I can. I don't have much signal, but I might be able to pull up the email from the original listing. But that requires me to remember which. It was this one. Yeah, 780 square feet. That's small. That's real small. I've been in apartments since I was 18, with a house once or twice, but for the most part been renting apartments. And that is on the smaller side of everything I've ever rented. And it's also ungodly expensive. 780 square feet for $2,400 a month. And I'm sure that there are people who are in worse situations in cities and things like that. So I know that there's parts of it where you can't complain too much. But at the same time, where we live now, I feel comfortable saying, because it probably won't be like, it's $1,000 a month. And we get 1,500 square feet. So double, just about, for 1,400 more, half the space. Ugh. But anyway, and we got 3 floors where I've got my whole basement to set up my photography studio, where I do my contract work, and then all of my work at my desks for my 2 computers, one for editing and sometimes gaming, but mostly I've been playing Xbox, and then the work computer for my 40-hour-a-week job. That'll all have to downsize. I'm going to try to not get rid of as much stuff as possible, but boy, it's going to be tough. So, mostly, though, I will say, besides the troubles of people who don't want cats, or people who want us to make more money, because that's another one. We really don't. I don't make a ton of money. She works for a public school system. You know she doesn't make a lot of money because that's in the news all the time about how educators barely get paid. And, like, she technically makes more than I do. So there we go. And you know I don't make a lot either. And yet that's the most money I've ever made in my life. So It's still not quite enough, and I can't blame anybody when they're the landlord and they're renting and they go, all right, well, we can look at this couple who makes this much money, or we can look at these people who make way more. And I mean, that's what I know. Colorado, there's a huge there's a huge technology boom there, I guess. That's one of the areas, that and like a Silicon Valley, from my understanding. And so programmers go there, software developers who make like 6-figure salaries on their own, and oh boy, not me. So I can't really blame them. There's that, and then there's the fact that we don't want to move in until school starts, because we're in a place already. Like, we're under contract and under lease already in a place, and don't want to move right this second. We can't just drop everything. She's still in school, and the places that are coming for listing are available basically now. Over the last, let's see, I moved out at 18 and started doing that, and I'm 30, I'll be 31, so almost 19 years of renting. I have always found apartments months in advance, because in every contract I've ever had to sign, you have to give a 60-day notice. These places, these listings for apartments for rent or condos or townhouses pop up, and they're like, yeah, it's available right now, or it's available starting next week, and then they're gone, because it's such a populated, like, people are moving in, people snatch them up. No one wants to go, oh yeah, I'd love to rent to you in 3 months, which puts a huge strain on, like, finding. I've only seen 2 places that said they were available in July, which is closer, like, really August 1st would be when we need to move, but I've seen some for July that are available. So those are, thankfully, that's the one that we've gotten a positive review on, or positive feedback on, and of someone who wants to rent to us, but still waiting to find out a bit more about that, because if it's $2,400 a month, and then we have any additional bills on top of that, like, I think some utilities were included, but if internet's not included, there's probably another $100 a month. And then they didn't mention anything about a pet rent, which everybody charges pet rent now. Even though you pay a deposit when you come in there, then you have to pay a monthly fee on top of it because you have a pet. Anyway, it is a very stressful situation, and there's not a whole lot to go on. And I'm really hoping that, like, we get some good news and can settle down on something there and go, all right, here's what the situation is, and then start planning for a move. But I also don't want to force us into a situation where the budget is stretched so thin that we have to get second jobs. I mean, that's already going to happen, but I'd rather us be able to, like, just in case, be able to cover everything there. And this one is really beyond the budget. So, anyway, that's been going on. Outside of that, 100%ed Elden Ring, video games that I've been talking about, and I'm on my goal of playing the Pokemon games. I am on the 5th generation, the 6th game that I've played, because there were 2 in that one. There was Black and White and then Black and White 2, and I'm on the 2nd one, and I'm more than halfway through with that. So I'm making progress there. I play that at least 4 days a week when I ride the bike after work, the exercise bike. I get on there and put on some music and just play Pokemon for 45 minutes. So I make a little bit of progress every day there. And then I 100%ed Elden Ring, like I said. Until the DLC comes out, I got almost every single item in the game. There were a few that I missed even on the second playthrough, and I just was like, I'll get them at another point in time. It's like additional armor that I just don't have, and was like, I'm never going to use it anyway, and it's just, trying to collect everything. But I got all the achievements, which counts as 100%, and I played through the game 3 times to do that so I could get the different endings. It's a really fun game, and I'm really excited for when DLC comes out, because I'm sure they'll do it. They've done DLC on all the other games, I think, and this one was massive, so I really hope so. Plus, it's just a fantastic game. Looking forward to that. And then I jump back to my main squeeze. My main attraction, the game that I've played the most over the last few years has been Elder Scrolls Online. And that's just always great. That's a fantastic MMORPG. Mamorpig. I don't think most people would pronounce it as one word. It's a great game. I enjoy it. I have fun with it. I'm working on a few different characters. I've got a few goals in that game. One of them is to hit level 1000, which used to be the cap. I think it was like 1200 or something like that. And then they bumped it so that effectively you get points all the way through level 1800, but then you can go to 3600, and it's just between 18 and 36. It's just a level bump at that point. It does nothing. It's just you see a number go higher. Whereas at least up to 18, you still get like a point every level to put into a skill tree. And that's a huge, like, I don't know any other games that go to a level like that, especially when you start at 1 and you go, you know. Thankfully, the nice thing about it is once you hit 50, you transfer over kind of to a different level system where you start back at 1, but you're level 50, and then you've got a different leveling system, and that's what goes all the way up to 3600 or something like that. Anyway, once you hit 50 on your first character, any other character you hit after that, as soon as you hit 50 on them, they just automatically become whatever your higher level is on the other system. So I'm at 950 right now. I really want to hit 1000. And so if I get another character to level 50, they automatically become 950, which I've done on 3 different characters so far, and I'm working on a 4th because I do want to have one of each role, plus it's fun to play with all the different ones. So I've been enjoying that, and also they add new content to that fairly regularly, every few months, new stuff, and then they have bigger chapters that you buy as an expansion. Anyway, it's a great game. I've always enjoyed Elder Scrolls, and it's unlike most MMORPGs that I have played throughout my life, which has been fairly constant since I was a child. I started out with RuneScape, playing with my friends, and then we moved over to MapleStory, and then when that got boring, after a few years, we jumped into just about anything. We were just like, let's try something different for a few weeks, let's try something different, and we just bounced from one to the next. So I played, 20 or 30 over the course of that, just trying out different ones and seeing what we liked. But this one is stuck. I picked this one up a few years ago when my oldest sibling suggested it to me. It was like, hey, you should play this game. And I played the beta, but that was on PC, and it didn't grab me near enough to actually want to play it. So then I picked it up on Xbox a couple years ago, and then I dumped over 1,000 hours into it for the last few years. So yes, I enjoy it. Anyway, enough about video games. We could talk about something else personal. I have to pull back up my list of questions. Today, we're going to talk about nicknames, because the question that I picked was, do you have a nickname? If so, who gave it to you, and how did it come about? If you could choose a nickname for yourself, what would you want it to be, and why? I don't think I right now have a nickname. Technically, several of the jobs I've worked at, most people have called me Mike, and I've either corrected them once or not bothered. Because I don't actually go by Mike. To me, Mike is a whole other name. I go by Michael. But throughout the years, I've had various nicknames. Some of them stuck more than others. I'm trying to think. There was a summer camp where I went to learn technical theater, which is how I kind of have a background of theater work, doing lighting design and working on the board op and a bit of sound, which I wish I'd paid more attention to. It didn't interest me as a teenager, and if I'd known more about it, I'd be able to use it in my audio recording knowledge. I've had to try to learn as much as I can from that, from YouTube, and other training resources that I can find about audio specifically. But when I was there, I got the nickname Odd Job, which is interesting as I think about it, because I haven't been called that in not quite 20 years, but close to it. And it probably would be a lot more prevalent when I shave my head, which I'm going to do at some point. And I'll shave it completely there. And then obviously, after I shave it, I'll start wearing a bowler cap that has a steel brim so I can throw it at people. I think it was partly that, because I was just a big guy. Even as a teenager, but I think it was more to the point of I would just do anything. I was homeschooled. I did not have a theater that I had at my homeschool, like most of the students there were public schooled, and they would be in the theater department throughout the year at their high school, and then they would have the summer camp where they get to go and do more of that. I did not have that. I only had the summer camp because I was homeschooled, so going there, it was like, I'm here to work. I'm here to get as much experience as I can. I'm here to do as much as I can and have fun doing it, but I would do anything. If they needed a volunteer, my hand was the first one up because I would do anything. So I think I got called Odd Job because of that. But that was only for like the first year. Everybody had a nickname. That was part of the summer camp. So I think that's kind of why that was there. And then there was just like 6 Michaels, because of course there's always a ton of Michaels. So I'm fairly certain that what I got called after that for the remaining, I went every year for 6 years, I think. 5 or 6 years. Did I skip a year? I don't remember now. It was throughout the teenage years, every summer. There may have been another 1 or 2 nicknames, but for the most part, I just got called my last name, Ward. That was just, hey, Ward, do this. That just became far easier than Michael, and you get several people going, what? So that stuck around for a while, and then I wound up using that in other jobs and things like that. When I volunteered for security at conventions, it was just easier to put that than anything else ridiculous on my name tag, and we all just went by nicknames. So there was that. That's been I think that more than anything else has been the main nickname. Anything that's just not being called Michael. I did when I got my first job, met a pretty cool guy who was just like, call you a different name. As soon as, like, day one, within the first few minutes of meeting me, he was like, now you know what? Your name's going to be Sexalicious. And I went, what? And for some reason, I was like, well, I can't be comfortable with that. And so I didn't. And then he gave me a much worse nickname that I won't repeat, because I try to keep this somewhat not as R-rated as it would be. So anyway, that's been for the most part. I can't think of anything else that really anyone else has called me a nickname. I've certainly never chosen a nickname. I don't think I would. Yeah, I don't really have anything that I could think of as far as if I was to choose a different nickname. If I were to pick a name and go, you will call me this from now on. Everyone refer to me as this. Nothing really comes to mind. I don't really care too much what people call me. That's why people call me Mike, and I don't correct them. I don't worry about it. If someone asks and goes, hey, is it Michael or Mike? I will tell them my preference is Michael, but I never correct anyone and go, no, it's like this. But I get that, and I understand people who are more passive. I've met many, and I am one of them, who just go, it's not worth it. So I don't care. And then they wind up getting called something else for years that isn't actually their name. So I don't, hey you. My dad called me all kinds of names. Lugnut, Lughead, several things like that. Boy. Which now, as an adult and having played Red Dead Redemption 2, that's... no, wait. I think he calls his horse in Red Dead Redemption 2, but really the meme, the joke more commonly used, boy, would be from God of War, the newer God of War, where Kratos just says boy a whole lot and refers to his child that way. But anyway, that's nicknames. That's not a huge topic to really talk about, because it doesn't bother me. I don't care what people call me or how they refer to me. It doesn't matter. I could steal a joke from that same summer camp of the man who taught all the theater classes, who was really funny, who apparently then stole that joke from somebody else. That's how humor. That's how it works. You always take it, but you can call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner. Just pretty accurate. Good times. That's really all I got going on right now. Future planning, I actually accomplished a couple of goals that as I was getting into it and the stress of everything that was going on, which is still ongoing, but I wound up going, all right, I don't think I'm going to hit my goals for April, now that we're into May. So I adjusted them slightly. My goal for April was to get all the sage-grouse footage edited. And then I realized, I was like, this is a big project. This is taking me longer than I think. I put a lot of time and work into it, and I didn't think I was going to complete it. And then I just, the weather, it was like, oh, here's snow on a Saturday or a Sunday when you would normally go out. And I went, I guess I'm going to go downstairs and edit for 6 hours or 8 hours or however long I did. And I managed to finish that to a point where I felt that I was comfortable, done, and released it. So that became the goal that I went, I'll do that in May. actually got done in April. So the one that I put for April, because I tried to give myself a goal each month to complete, was getting organized with all of our documents as it's like moving and everything there. And then I realized I was like, hey, it's just time. So I finally bought a fireproof safe for all of our really important documents because, you know, I've already had to get a new birth certificate because I don't know where my original one went. My dad doesn't know where my original one went. It's gone somewhere. I can only hope it wasn't in the house that went to foreclosure. And I don't think it was, because we pretty well went through everything before we left and moved out. So I don't know if he has it somewhere or if it was in a safety deposit box at a bank or who knows. But anyway, the point was I needed one because at some point in Georgia, I needed to get my license renewed. And they went, well, we've updated to a new system. And you only have to do it once because everything's computerized now. Whereas before, if you already had an ID, you could just bring in your ID, which I did. They updated to a new system where they're like, look, we just do this one time for everybody across the board. You bring in proof of address, you know, a bill or a statement or something like that. And you bring in your birth certificate and your social security card and all of your major important documents. You bring it in once, you get entered into their digital system. And then from that point on, you don't have to bring that stuff back. It's all digital. They have it on their computers. You just go in and get your new ID every so often that it expires, which, for all that it did with all that, I don't live in Georgia anymore, and I don't plan to, if I can avoid it, going back to Georgia. I've been there, I've done that. There's a lot more places to go and live and be and experience, so I'd rather go do all of them. But anyway, I had to get, at that point I was already an adult, 19 or 20, 21, 22. Oh boy, when was that? It was when I was living in that apartment. I could look. Anyway, into my 20s, approaching mid-20s, I had to buy my birth certificate a second time. A first time for me. So I do have a birth certificate and saved it in my fireproof safe along with all of the other important documents. And then it was just like, here's the really important stuff, the main stuff, but it's a fairly large safe and like we have tons of, because you never know when you might need something. So I save tons of documents from various and anything, a bill that I've paid off, any kind of debt or offers for credit cards that I've accepted, things like that. I always want to have the original terms and stuff like that because I'd rather have too much and then they go, hey, guess what? You're getting audited. And I go, great, I've got everything, than not have enough. And they go, hey, you're getting audited. And I go, uh-oh, because that's... I think my chances of being audited now are far higher as I've started doing contract work and I have to file taxes in a different way going forward. I've never had to do that before. Since I turned 18 and got a job and started filing taxes regularly every year, I've never had anything else besides maybe two jobs. For the most part, it was just one job, easy, done, no worries. I haven't been in school as a college, so I never had to claim anything there. I've never done 1099 work as an independent contractor in any way, shape, or form. It's always just been your fairly standard, the basic tax exemptions, credit claiming. I don't know. Taxes are purposely weird and stupid and confusing. Anyway, for the first year ever, I am now working as an independent contractor on top of my normal job. So I have to keep everything separate and audit myself as far as my income as what's going in. And then as I didn't realize, you have to pay taxes almost up front. You have to make quarterly payments. You don't just wait until the end of the year and go, here's my money. Here's what and then you pay them then. You pay a penalty, a fee if you do that. You are meant to make regular quarterly payments in the United States if you are working as an independent contractor. So I had to do that at the beginning of April, which is the first quarter. I went, all right, well, that's what here's money. And I hope I did it right, because the best part about it is looking through all of their stuff. As I mentioned, it's purposely confusing, which, as I've come to learn, is on purpose. They do that. The big businesses like TurboTax and H&R Block and those things lobby for and pay off the people in government who could make changes to keep it complicated so that they can remain in business, which to me kind of seems bullshit. But anyway, the point is, I went and looked on everything I could find, the IRS's website, every tax document, every company that does anything like that. I've researched for hours to make sure everything I could find to try to, you guess what it is, but you have to pay it up front. they don't actually give you like, here's a form for how much you should deduct or anything, or here's what the standard one is, or even here's how much of a percentage it should be that you pay in taxes out of your income. Everything there says if you're an independent contractor, just use your last year's form so that you can estimate. I didn't have a one last year. I've never done this before. This is the first year I've done this, and you give me no instructions on what to do in your first year. Every bit of instructions is use the previous year. So they purposely say, screw you for the first time. You'll just figure it out and probably owe us penalties and pay extra in fees when you file your taxes next year, depending on how well you did it throughout the year. Cool. Super cool. So I took everything I could find, and I paid whatever percentage of income that I'd have, because I set that aside from my monthly, from the contract work, the money that I get there. I immediately just go put money aside so that I can pay the taxes for that. So I just went ahead and overestimated and went, boy, I hope this will be enough, and paid them that and gave them money with no real idea to know whether or not that's actually going to be accurate and how that's going to affect my taxes next year. So that will be fun. But I'm hoping, at least by overestimating, I will cover for the fact that I didn't underpay and then would owe a penalty, and I should get more money back next year. That's not ideal. I'd rather get it to the point where the last few years I've really narrowed into trying to get nothing on a tax return, to get it as little as possible, because then you get more throughout the year. It's not like you make any money off of, they just keep your money, and it's not like they're getting interest or anything. So we'll find out what happens. It'll be interesting. But I do think, because I'm just kind of winging it on my own on the best information I can find, I have no intention of going and paying a tax person, even though that's why they're there, and they purposely do it that way. I would rather figure it out on my own and do that than give them any of my money for a system that I find to be broken and purposely directed to target poor people who don't have the money to. Anyway, you want to talk about a bit of unfair is when they go, all right, well, if you don't have the $40 or $50 or whatever it is to file your taxes today, don't worry, we'll take it out of your return when it comes in. But we will take 2 or 3 times as much, because that's where we make more money. And it's like, that's not why? Because they can, because who's going to stop them? The whole thing is ridiculous. I'm not a fan. But anyway, that's gone off on a tirade far other than nicknames. So the purpose is, I think my point there was, now that I'm doing it on my own, and I'm filing taxes in a way that is less secured than going through whatever free option I can find for filing taxes each year, where I have just the basic return, I think I'm more likely to get audited. We'll find out. As far as I can read, I'm reading up on all the rules about what I can claim as a business expense, because my business's contract work is photography. It is product photography. I can prove that in every way. I have the proof of all that. I am under contract and everything there. So business expenses, like I bought a tripod. That to me is a business expense. It directly relates to, I bought a specific tripod to do with the photography work there. So I'm claiming that on my taxes as a business expense. I'm not going above and beyond or trying to squeak anything through, so we'll see what happens. Are you birds? You look like birds. Sorry, I see something moving in the grass. You're not birds. You're a big old gopher. You're a pair of gophers. Are you hugging? Oh my. Turn the camera on. Were you cleaning each other? Aww, they're cute and fuzzy and cuddly. Never go near them. There was a pair of them standing up, and it looked like they were touching. I said gopher. That's the wrong word. Gophers are small. These are, what are they? Why can't I think of the name of these creatures? 'Cause, 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 'cause Well, I don't know how much of that. I didn't notice when the camera stopped. I forgot this thing has a 30-minute recording time limit. I'm pretty sure it was while I was looking with the camera, because I, for the most part, have been looking at the lens and would have seen when it was close and would have stopped. So, well, all you missed was me not being able to correctly identify the animals that I'm seeing out there, because in my head, all I could think of was the word gopher, but gophers are little bitty, and these are big. There are gophers over near my apartment. There's a park right across the street, and I've seen the little bitty gophers going in and around the holes and things like that. But these are groundhogs. They're big, thick groundhogs. Anyway, got a little video of that. So that was my talking about nicknames and a tirade on paying taxes. Super important, but boy, I wish it wasn't as confusing as it was, as they've purposely made it out to be, because why? Anyway, I think that's all I really have to talk about today as an update. I talked about my goals. I talked about getting organized. The wind is picking up. The clouds are rolling in. I'll start heading home soon. My goal, since I accomplished the organizing of documents, and actually the sage grouse, which I moved to May, I'm going to try to make it out to Yellowstone in May. That's really what I'd like to do. It's a bigger trip. It's a 4-hour trip. It's a lot heavier and harder to do, but I really want to try to do that, because if we wind up moving in July and August, it'll be a lot harder to get that. It'll get hotter temperature-wise. It'll be harder to make a trip out and do that. But then again, it was 40 degrees this morning, and I was a bit cold. Anyway, we'll see. Yellowstone might happen. Hopefully it does, because I would like to visit there before I leave. In which case I would take probably just like that camera and maybe this camera to do any video stuff that I want to, and maybe a still photo, something like that. I would go very light, and I would camp in the car, I think. And that's why I'm kind of waiting for the weather to get to a point where I'm not going to be freezing even in the sleeping bag and everything like that, because looking at trying to rent a place out there, it is very much a tourist destination. It's a very popular place. I mean, it's Yellowstone. It's well known. And so it's like $300 or $400 a night. And I'd rather pay the one night camping fee instead and just hoof it in the back of the car. So that's probably what I will wind up doing. I just have to find the time to do that on a weekend, when I'm not working, where I could do that. And maybe I've floated a few different ideas where I either go out the night before but arrive before the sun sets. Like if I get off of work, 3 or 4 in the afternoon on Friday, and then just immediately leave, try to get out there before the sun sets around 8 or 9, and then sleep and get up and be there the next day, and then leave, towards the end of that day and be out there for about a 24-hour period. And I've also had the other thought of get up and leave at like 5 in the morning, miss the sunrise, but then be there for that day, spend the night, and then leave the next morning and come home. So I floated around that idea a few times in my head, trying to decide which one I will do. What I will do is get some more footage of groundhogs. Aw. Cute. I didn't realize that they were out here. I've been here once or twice, and I did not realize they were groundhog holes, whatever they live in, the burrowing. That's what I need to focus on. Maybe that will be my goal for June, because July and / August might be getting ready, packing up, and moving. June might be try to knock out the other birds on my list. My other secondary thing of the 5 birds that I wanted to see this year One of them for sure was the Burrowing Owl, which finding them in a I remember reading about they will move into like old groundhog. What you call it? Community? Where they make their holes. What did they? There was a prairie dogs. They're prairie dogs. They're not groundhogs. Burrows. They nest and roost in burrows such as those excavated by prairie dogs. Yeah, these are prairie dogs. What am I? I'm just not smart sometimes. What did they called it a certain, it was like a town, it was like a human term that you would expect. You wouldn't think so, and I've forgotten what it was called, but it was like, a prairie dog town or a prairie dog community or something like that. Anyway, after the prairie dogs, which is what these are, I'm just not there today. I was thinking about birds and stuff and taxes and nicknames and wasn't thinking about the animal that I've been seeing for 2 years since I moved here all over the place that you don't see prairie dogs in Georgia or Florida or North Carolina or any of the other states that I've been to as an adult. You see prairie dogs in Wyoming and on the plains. Prairie dogs. Anyway, they're prairie dogs. There are cute prairie dogs out there on the plains there. I did not realize that there were some that had their homes here. It's actually fairly close, and the only other place that I know of to see them is off the major highway, which I cannot legally, and also because of safety, just pull off to the side of the road and stop there for a long period of time and set up the camera for a couple of hours. So this might be a good spot, except for the sun. If I came back at night, the sun, which is risen that way, will be setting that way. And so then I'd get I might come back here at night one night and watch the prairie dogs and set up the big cameras and the big lenses and everything like that and get some prairie dog footage, because when else am I going to have the opportunity while living in Wyoming to see prairie dogs quite as readily? Okay, well, I think that's about all I got for today. Talked about a few things. Wrapped up some stuff. I think it's time to drive home. Get all this stuff packed up in today's meal cook day. So prep my meals for the week. And I guess buy some new gloves, because there's a hole in my glove. Right in the little finger. I noticed it and was pointing it out in the other video. Buy some new gloves, I guess. I could sew it, but it's just gotten all frayed and torn apart. But to be fair, I think I bought these before I even left Georgia. I don't think these were a Wyoming purchase. They may have been. But I'm pretty sure I had some gloves in Georgia. Although it may have been the fingerless ones because that was the other idea. I needed something when I was playing with the cameras and stuff. Anyway, that's it for now. Join us next week. Maybe next week I'll go to Yellowstone, or maybe the week after. I'll plan it out. I'll have to see. Maybe I'll come back and look at prairie dogs. Maybe.